everyone, I'm Melissa McAllister, and you're listening to The Melissa Made Show. Now, for decades, I've dedicated myself to helping women break the cycle of dieting, navigate through all the fads, and change their lives through my nutrition coaching. Now, each week, I'm going to talk about everything from deep nutrition, mindset, self-care, the ideal workout routine, tips on how and why to implement intermittent fasting in your life, my favorite recipes that are not only crowd pleasers, but they're actually healthy for you, and so much more. Now, with small and consistent changes, you can defy aging while living a happier, healthier, and more heart-filled life. I'm so excited to show you it's possible with the right strategies that are so simple to adopt. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Melissa Made Show. So I have quite the interesting guest. As always, if you follow me on my stories, you heard me talk about this young man. He fascinates me. And obviously, there's some things that he does that I think are genius. And so we're going to talk about those things like fasting. But I want to, as always, give him a great introduction so you have an idea of who we're speaking with today. And then I'm just really excited to dive in. Like I said, I wanted to have a cup of coffee because I could just imagine sitting at a table with this young man and just chatting. He's so interesting. So let me introduce Zach Schreier. Hard name for Melissa McAllister to say. But in January of last year, Zach and his childhood best friend stepped into the chicken costumes for an appearance on Shark Tank. They were seeking support for their startup, Quevos. Now, it's a brand of healthy egg white-based chips that are low carb and high protein, and they walked away with a really great deal. Now, Zach, a 22-year-old entrepreneur who didn't stop at chips, continues to shake up the fitness and wellness industry with bold new ideas on fasting and healthy living. I love that. Zach's early diagnosis of type 1 diabetes forced him to be vigilant on food and its effect from the young age. So excited to talk about that. He co-founded Quevos as a freshman in college, and in 2019 opened the doors to Lifestacks, which is something we're going to dive into a lot deeper. It's a fitness forward company that capitalizes on nutraceuticals and other superfoods to support intermittent fasters in their daily pursuit of well-being and elite performance. So today, him and I are going to diffuse some of the common myths and misconceptions on fasting and reframe conversations on what it means to live a healthy lifestyle. So thank you so much, Zach, for being on with me. How are you today?
I'm great. Well, thank you so much for that intro. Really lovely. I'd say super excited to be with you and talk with your audience. I feel like very awestruck here. Many of your guests have been people I've looked up to for a long time. So
you and me both. So are you still 22?
I'm 24 now.
You're 24 now.
That 22 is referencing when we were on Shark Tank.
Okay, so that's my first question. I just have to ask, what was it like to be on that show?
It was really cool.
Yeah.
It went by really quickly. So it was a 45-minute or so session with the sharks, but it felt like we were in and out. My memories sort of came back like in the weeks after the airing. I blanked out.
Sure.
But really great experience, and I think it was right before lunch that we taped, and feeding the sharks made them a bit friendlier to us.
The one question I want to have is because, television, they want the drama. And so they're always a little bit, dare I say the word mean, they're abrasive on the show. Are they a little bit nicer behind the scenes, or are they that abrasive even outside of the filming part of the show?
Yeah, I think we got their best side that day. They were pretty nice to us. They like young entrepreneurs. They want to show support for people that are, trying to build their own businesses at a young age. Like I said, I think the food helps. The snack, so.
For sure. So you were diagnosed, you have to tell me at what age, as a type 1 diabetic. I get asked a lot from my following, especially the moms of younger kids, that they want to help feed better, but it's difficult to, you can't hover over your child, helicopter parent your child the whole time, and make sure that they're always eating healthy. When you were diagnosed with it, you're obviously very interested in a healthy lifestyle. What was it that worked for you that helped keep that, after finding out you were diagnosed, keep that healthy lifestyle going, and maybe some of the tips and tricks, whether it was mindset or actually your actual diet that helped you control this type 1 diabetes?
Yeah. Well, I was diagnosed as a sixth grader, so I was 11 years old. And for kids, that's a time to explore, have fun, eat a lot of junk food in America, at least. And so it was shocking, definitely, to all of a sudden have to be kind of the steward of my own health like that. Um,
Hmm.
I'd say it was a window into kind of what really underlies human health in general, which is homeostasis. And homeostasis is really foundation of life in general, not just human life, but it's the way life gets off the ground. It's the way that life explores all the different niches it can occupy. And so really, our own internal regulatory processes are no different.
Yeah.
But I got to sort of see it firsthand, and kind of I was forced to kind of be in the mix, managing my sugar. Um, I'd say the first thing that really helped was kind of taking an experimental and interventionist approach to it. So, on the way home from the hospital, I was like, "Mom, Dad, do I really have to do all this? Like, it sounds like a lot of work." They were like, "Absolutely, you have to do it. It's super serious. We'll help you out,
Sure.
but this is something you have to take on." And so I started pretty immediately running experiments. I kept a really pretty exhaustive journal of everything I did, everything that would impact my sugar, and got to know kind of basically how my body responded to different sources of food, activity, and things like that.
Okay. So do you, just a snapshot into your daily life when it comes to eating. Now, one of the things that obviously intrigued me the most about you was that your interest in fasting, and being a type 1 diabetic, you would, a lot of people would be like, you can't mix those two. Those two can't be in and of the same. So obviously, as a sixth grader, you probably didn't start intermittent fasting. So just as a younger adult, what kind of protocols did you have to staying healthy eating wise? I mean, were you someone that had 5, 6, 7 meals a day? Did you eat fewer meals a day? Were you particular about the kinds of foods that you ate? And then when did, intermittent fasting come into your life to help you, control this diabetes?
Yeah, you're quite right. I did not start fasting until a few years ago. And so, during adolescence, I was eating the normal 3 meals a day. During high school, I started the phase out breakfast. And I think that's how you got your start fasting as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, I did. That was back when we were encouraged to have protein, 20 grams of protein 5 times a day. So I did
Yes.
start with like 3 slices of turkey in the morning, and then I would make sure to have 20 grams of protein at lunch too. But it was more comfortable for me to wake up and kind of just get on with my day. I didn't really feel like I needed much food in the morning, so that sort of was a transitionary period into fasting. But before that, in terms of just being a youth with diabetes, I think basically the most important thing was learning to offset carbs with insulin. So just
Mhm.
the process of managing it.
Yeah.
Um, I was a picky eater, so my diet was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But I did really enjoy eggs. That was kind of my go-to, because you don't have to account for eggs with insulin. They don't really require any insulin because there's no
Mm.
carbs. So I would do eggs. I would add some mozzarella cheese, and that sort of kicked off that first business where we made
Okay.
chips from egg whites. But yeah, that was my go-to, I'd say.
Okay. And so for you to be able to wake up in the morning and not have the need for, air quotes, the need for breakfast, to me it seems like that you were pretty conscious of maybe what you ate for dinner the night before to keep you steady throughout the night, and to even be okay in the morning to not have to eat something to keep your blood sugar from dropping too much or anything like that. So was there anything that you thought, I mean, like, are you the eggs and the cheese, would you consider yourself a low carbohydrate eater, or regular or low fat, or how are you? I mean, not to label you as eating a specific diet, but were there certain foods that you found yourself able to manage that type 1 diabetes?
Yeah, I found moderate to low carb intake would be the best for basically just smooth sugar all day. So,
Mhm.
sort of to your point about whether diabetics should fast or not, I think the medical establishment likes to discourage sort of experimental behaviors like that for diabetics, especially because it's something that is so tightly regulated. And
Yeah.
it's just easier for the doctors if the patient's following very standard eating protocols. But basically, the way to think about the way that carbs and insulin work for type 1. carbs drive your sugar up and insulin brings your sugar down by shoveling that glucose from the bloodstream to the cells.
Mhm.
And basically it's as if you're trying to fly a plane at 1,000 feet. The ground is right beneath you, so you have to be very careful about that. But
Mhm.
you don't want to get too high in the air also, because in the case of, by analogy, that's high sugar and that causes damage. And so you want to really keep it in that tight range. And the easiest way to do that is to not basically do things that cause your sugar to spike a ton and cause you to have to compensate with a lot of insulin.
Yeah.
So basically, low carb meals are a really great option for me. And fasting, as long as I've got my basal insulin tuned in so that I'm not doing excessive basal insulin, then fasting's awesome because I don't experience those sugar spikes that I get if I were to have some simple carbs.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I will have to say, the medical establishment is, I mean, you will find some doctors that are very pro and then some that are very anti. And the ones that are anti, you kind of sometimes can't blame them because people don't educate themselves, unlike you, who sounds incredibly educated, don't educate themselves and understand the pros and the cons and what to watch when it comes to, being type 2 diabetic or type 1 diabetic and incorporating fasting, different types of protocols, which is what we're going to get into next, but different protocols of fasting. And just seeing a fit influencer, finishing up a 3-day fast and then thinking, oh, I want to do that too. So it is easier sometimes for the medical established to say no fasting because, we tend to, and I say this all the time, we tend to, as human beings and especially Americans, overdo things. So we hear, this much is good. So we do, instead of taking the inch, we do the whole foot. So I do get that, but I love hearing you say that you're able to figure out a protocol that works for you with fasting, with type 1 diabetes that has helped you thrive. Let's talk a little bit about the different types of fasting. And you shared that why some, fasting protocols that people do seems to fail them in ways that they can fast and be very successful with it.
Sure. I'll say one more thing on the previous point, which is that for type 1s and type 2s that are using medications that lower blood sugar,
Mhm.
low sugar is no joke. It's really the most dangerous, acutely dangerous thing that a diabetic can experience.
Right.
And so it is really important that you're very thoughtful about how you fast or how you do low carb diets in general. You have to really preemptively lower your insulin. So you got to watch out for that. Having a pump that is on a closed loop system helps because basically it can sense that you're dropping and then give you less insulin. So that's a great tool for me when if I've had a
Agree.
low carb day, I can trust the pump at night, for example.
Mhm.
But you just got to be really careful and thoughtful. It's not something you can just jump into.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, before you go into it, this is just a silly question, but do you have a dog?
my childhood home still has 2 dogs. So my parents.
Okay, I've
Take care
just
of them.
always heard that dogs are very sensitive to that,
I've heard that too. Yeah.
you hear those stories of dogs that aren't even trained, but if there's a child, or it could be an adult, but it's always a child because it's a better story of the dog, alerting and trying to wake up or going and getting help if someone, especially if they're type 1 diabetic and their insulin drops too low when they sleep, or it's even about to before the episode even happens, they sense it. It's incredible. So I was just curious if you had a dog.
Yeah, no, it is incredible. I don't know how they do that, but I've heard that too. I mean, they're very sensitive to our emotions, and low
Yeah.
sugar makes you jittery and a little like almost sort of like anxious, and like I even get pale if my sugar's low. So
Yeah.
maybe they have a way of
Sense it.
sensing it.
I'm sure. So, okay,
Yeah.
keep going about the fasting and protocols.
Yeah, sure. So I guess my fasting is pretty standard. I think it's similar to what you do. I don't eat until later in the day. I'm not strict about that. So if for some reason I'm hungry one day, or I've got some reason I think I want food, maybe I'm gonna not be able to have like my early afternoon meal for some reason. So yeah, if I eat at 10 or 11 in the morning, it's not the end of the world by any means. And then I think the most important thing is not having food before bed. And for me, that's basically the life of my insulin is about 2.5, 3 hours. That's if I do an injection or my pump gives me insulin, then that's how long I can expect the insulin to be highly active in my bloodstream,
Okay.
lowering my sugar. And so I like to do my last bolus at least that far before bed, so that when I go to bed, I've got very little active insulin, and I can just have a smooth night. The other piece about that is you want your insulin levels to be low overnight. It's really the start of the fast. And so I love waking up in the morning, seeing that my sugar was stabilized all night and my insulin was very low. That's how I know I've really gotten the day off to the right start.
That's incredible. And, even whether you're not even not a faster, I always tell people that, don't eat right when you wake up, give your body a chance to become alert, get the hormones going, getting everything, the bile moving and everything. And then also, obviously, gosh, 3 hours before you go to bed, so that you do really give your body the chance. Because when you sleep, you're resting and repairing. And if you're, going to bed with a full belly, you're doing nothing but digesting. So the sooner that you can stop eating, the more you give the body the opportunity to rest and repair, as opposed to digesting is hard work on the body. And so giving it the opportunity to rest, I think, is wonderful. But then there are people like you and I that, believe that to shorten that window just a little bit more, maybe not eat for a couple hours in the morning and then a couple of hours before you go to bed, gives you that time to have a little bit longer fast and gives your body a little bit longer to rest and repair. So you've been fasting for several years now. Can you tell me, especially being a young man, why do you do it? What benefits do you feel, or what have you learned about fasting that makes you, as a very healthy young man, want to be an intermittent faster? Are you ready to learn the secret behind how I continue to be so healthy? Well, it all comes down to science. If you've been listening to my show for a while now, you may have heard me mention something called the MAID diet. Yes, that's right, because I'm so passionate about how learning about the effects that nutrition has on the human body, I always seek to learn as much as I can and apply that knowledge. One of my best learning tools has been self-experimentation. And now in my late 40s, I have to say, I've done a pretty good job. It's hard to find trustworthy, even accurate information in this country. Between the influence of big corporations with monetary agendas, the nutrition labels designed to deceive, and downright misleading information that you were taught in school, navigating food and nutrition with your optimum health in mind can be quite challenging. Take the food pyramid, for example. In an ideal world, I'm sure we would all love to eat pasta and baguettes for every meal, but that's simply not what's best for our bodies, our health, and our longevity. Now, I spent years developing the MAID diet in a way that I wish someone had taught me, and I break it all down in my MAID diet course. People are always asking me what I eat, so we start there. What I eat in a day and which foods are the most beneficial. So think something in between the Mediterranean and the paleo diet. It's a lifestyle plan that incorporates moderate protein, adequate fat, decreased carbs, and an introduction to intermittent fasting. But please, I want you to keep in mind, just because I say decrease carbs, I don't mean decrease carbs in what your body needs. I just mean decrease carbs in what the standard American diet has become. You still get plenty of quality carbohydrates, just not in the mass amounts we have been eating to get us into such an unhealthy state. And of course, we're going to talk about what foods to avoid, because that's just as important. We even talk about how to eat healthy on the go, because let's face it, we're busy and that's just life. And then there's intermittent fasting. I share all of my favorite tips and tricks, and a lot of science are along the way. I could not say enough good things about intermittent fasting, and I'm honestly so surprised more people are doing it. You'll also learn how I've learned to balance my hormones and feel my best, because so many women struggle with this. And lastly, we cover the mindset behind making a change, because we all know that your mindset is the key to your success in anything that you do. So if you are struggling with diet in terms of feeling your best, or you are ready to take your health to the next level, I strongly recommend you check out this course. Now, the course is structured in 5 modules, 16 lessons, and a whole lot of research to back everything up. So I want you to visit my website, themaiddiet.com or melissamaid.com, and you will see a tab for the course. Click on that to get access today and learn why you should be eating this way too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the first thing is for that diabetes management. That's really the thing that I noticed right away. It just gets easier the less you're mucking up the bloodstream with extra boluses of glucose.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing. But then in terms of just life structuring, so just the way that you structure your consumption, I find it to be a really nice way to not diet. So I don't have to be counting calories. I don't have to be, super restrictive, at least the way I feel about my consumption. Because, it's just instead of eating every hour of the day, I'm just eating during a window. And so I love it for that. I think it's a really great lifestyle, even more so than a diet.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I'd like to talk a little bit about this new venture that you're going on, Lifestacks, and where you're. What really piqued my interest was that you're working on these nutraceuticals and supplements that help people live healthier and also with elite performance, which I think is great. I don't know if you're an athlete or not. You'll have to let us know. But as they always say, the supplement world is the wild, wild west. And number one, what got you into wanting to create Lifestacks? And, what kind of nutraceuticals are you talking about? And what do these do?
Absolutely. So my passion for supplements really began in college. And the reason was I was looking for performance in ways that wouldn't jeopardize long-term health. So, my classmates were having Adderall, but I don't want to add toxicity to my body. There's already enough concern with aging and diabetes. So I wanted to make sure that what I was having was going to be helpful, not just right now, but also long-term. So that's really what drove the passion for supplements in the first place. And I guess, our way of thinking about supplements at Lifestacks, it's really sort of a three-pronged approach. So there is the acute benefits or impact of the supplements. I shouldn't just say benefits because sometimes people react negatively to certain supplements.
Sure.
And then there's long-term health impact, and I can sort of break down our way of understanding that too. But then the third piece is actually the consumption experience. So that's one thing that we found was lacking in the supplement industry. I mean, everybody prefers a gummy, for example, to a tablet,
Absolutely.
except for the extra sugar, and whatever else there's in there, emulsifiers, or I'm not sure. But we wanted to design supplement occasions that people loved actually performing. It's when you love your habits, you stick with them. So
Absolutely.
that was a big piece for us. Um, I guess I'll dive into the sort of long-term health benefits and how we understand that. So, people are familiar with the RDAs. Basically, it's the set of vitamins and minerals that the FDA recommends in the daily allotment of those. But there's a whole other class of compounds that are not yet recognized by the FDA as essential. And the reason is if you don't consume them, you won't show immediate signs of deficiency. But these can be classified as longevity nutrients. Basically, they help your body perform optimally over years. And when when aging presents, there's some chance that it's actually basically just deficiency in these longevity nutrients that have accumulated over time. And so examples of this, I think of my favorite example is the macular carotenoids. So lutein and the forms of zeaxanthin basically are used in the eye, and their deficiency can cause blindness over time. So it's not something that you're deficient in today, but maybe when you're 70, it does present. So basically, that's the first thing that we love about supplements. You can get these extra components. So basically, I'd call these like non-RDA nutritive components. There are things that aren't yet thought of as essential, but they really are. Some other examples are carnitine, lipoic acid, PQQ, creatine, these carotenoids. There's a compound in mushrooms. I think it's I'm not sure how to say it, but things of that sort. There's about 30 that have been identified as potentially essential. So the second class of things, and this is very broad, but it's basically metabolic optimization. And so this is stuff that supports the health defense systems in general, like every single health defense system. So from the gut to the inside of the cell. And basically certain supplements are, food extracts that have a role to play in optimizing metabolism. So carnitine, which I already mentioned, shuttles fatty acids to the mitochondria so that you can burn more fat more easily. And so we love supplements for their ability to actually make a positive impact on all of these different metabolic processes. And then the third piece is state setting. So that's really, that's kind of the thing that people think about, first when they think about supplements, the impact that they can have today on your performance. So we love supplements that really do all these things that, provide essential components, things that make your body work more efficiently, and things that make you feel great today.
I love that so much. And so, especially the third component, when you talked about making that the experience of actually taking it pleasurable. And I personally never thought about that. because, I just like you said, if they can make, a gummy that is good for you, I would so prefer to take my vitamin D as a gummy, because I do have my own little handful of pills, and I never, ever go into my kitchen and grab them and be like, oh boy, here we go. I get to take a mouthful of pills, instead of having that positive experience. So I think that's really clever of you and your team to think past that, because, you're going to make or break a habit by how well or how much you enjoy it. And so you mentioned that you're just on the cusp of releasing this. You want to tell everybody a little bit about how the process is gone and how close you are to being able to share it with the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So this first product is an MCT product that's stacked with nutraceuticals to basically give you all day energy in a healthy way. And we have specifically designed it to be compatible and supportive of fasting. The reason for that is, as we've talked about, fasting is a really great lifestyle, but we found it to be pretty undersupported from a product standpoint. Of course, the intuition around that is pretty clear. You don't eat when you're fasting, so
Right.
how can you make stuff for people to eat? But as it happens, there are certain things that are beneficial to have during the fasting window that don't disrupt many of the benefits of fasting. So people encourage coffee, for example, that enhances some of the metabolic benefits, appeases the appetite, and certainly doesn't compromise the benefits of fasting. I'd say the one benefit of fasting that all of these things will compromise is like the full gut reset. So if you're just trying to, just have water, if you're trying to clear out your gut entirely, coffee is not compatible with that purpose of fasting, and neither are the supplements.
I love
So
the cup.
yeah, me too. I think it's a great addition to that period. And I think fasting is not about feeling deprived, and
Yeah.
so things that you can take, maybe it's tea, maybe it's coffee, maybe it's a little lemon water, stuff like that. Even sparkling water that makes the fast easier. That's great.
Yeah. And so you for the most part are about a 16-hour a day faster, give or take, depending on if you're a little bit hungry earlier in the morning.
Yeah, and sometimes longer.
Yeah.
So yeah, my sort of favorite days are basically like fast till fast through early afternoon, do a running workout, and then have my break the fast, dinner.
Yeah.
And so that could be a one meal a day situation. Usually, I won't stack a bunch of those together. So fasting is a stressor. That's part of the benefit. It activates the stress response pathways, just like other great things like sauna and cold bath.
Yeah.
So, but you want to be careful. You don't want to, excessively stress yourself without adequate recovery. So I wouldn't put together a bunch of one meal a day days in a row. That's something I do intermittently.
Yeah, I agree
But I
with
do
that.
feel
So
good when I do that.
I'm curious, Zach, my daughter's 26 and my son's 27, so I could be your mom. But your mom, do your parents, what did they think about? I mean, besides being very proud of you, you're a very accomplished young man. When you started fasting, was your mom concerned? Was she an intermittent faster? Does she intermittently fast now? How did the conversation go with your parents, who love you very much and want you to be healthy, when you decided to become a faster? What kind of conversation was that?
Yeah, that's a fun question. They didn't pass any judgment on that. I think I've done enough strange things in my life, some good, some bad, that
Yeah.
they mostly let me do my own thing and trust me to make judgments like that. I think around that time I was getting really into a lot of the literature around nutrition also, and so they were curious to hear the things I was reading about, including the
Okay.
benefits of fasting.
Do they fast at all?
I think accidentally or incidentally that they do. So they usually just start with a cup of coffee and then eat lunch.
Yeah, that's my mom too. I love my mom to death. And I told her that I would love for her to fast. And she says, honey, I do. She says, I don't. She goes, I only have my black coffee in the morning. And she goes, I don't have breakfast till around 10. And I'm like, well, technically, yes, you are.
Yeah, that's great. Right.
Yeah, very proud to tell me that. So, tell me, like, where do you see Zach in, 3 to 5 years? You're obviously a very driven young man, and you've quite the entrepreneur. And it sounds like Lifestacks is going to be a huge deal and a great benefit to, like I said, the supplement world that can be very helpful or very harmful. And it sounds like you're doing your due diligence to help people in a really positive way. Besides Lifestack, killing it, and you just doing so well with that. Is there anything else that you see yourself doing in the next 3 to 5 years to keep that entrepreneurial spirit going?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for asking that. That's a really fun invitation. I guess on Lifestacks, we really do want to support fasters in their pursuit of health and performance. And so, I don't want to stop at the MCT product. I think there's other occasions and other really opportunities to support the fasting lifestyle. So, for example, electrolytes are something that people have when fasting.
Yeah.
And so, that's a product we have our eye on. And I won't spoil the rest of the pipeline, but we're excited to do a lot of stuff in the coming years.
Okay.
I guess my second sort of like job that is sort of my nighttime job is philosophy, and not the kind of like esoteric like sort of semantic philosophy. It's more
Yeah.
like we're at this really cool time in history when there's so much scientific knowledge, and fields are actually kind of integrating.
Yeah.
So what started as these special sciences, these independent disciplines, or actually what started as just philosophy essentially branched out into these special sciences.
Uh-huh.
But now it looks like there's a kind of general systems theory that's underlying all of the different systems that scientists are studying.
Uh,
And so I'm really interested in that and in the translation of that. So, I think potentially we could enrich ourselves with a kind of pretty simple, compact understanding of essentially everything. And so I'm basically just sort of eagerly awaiting more breakthroughs in these different fields and particularly their integration. So I hope to just stay in that mind space basically over these coming years.
I think that's fantastic, and it sounds very cerebral. Good for you. Is there anything else that you would love to share with the audience? You're such a unique guest for me in the fact that you're number one, I haven't had anybody that's type 1 diabetic on the show before. You're for sure my youngest guest so far. And I just love the take that you have on, wanting to help people in the nutraceutical supplemental world, because I'm sure you believe as I do, which goes against what some people believe. It's very, very difficult to live a healthy lifestyle without any kind of a supplementation that we just, even if you try your absolute best, we're still missing the mark on some things, and it's not our fault. You could be doing everything that your great grandparents did and they were perfectly healthy, but because of so many things that we could get into, the food's just not the way that it was. So supplementing is very, very important. And I think it's great that you're taking it very seriously. But anything else about yourself or about the things that you've learned, the knowledge that you've gained in the last several years of being an entrepreneur, being a young man, being a type 1 diabetic, that you would like to share with the audience to inspire them?
Oh gosh. Wow. Many things coming
Put
to
you on the
mind.
spot.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, I guess one of the frameworks that I like to think through is that basically we're here to meaningfully engage and participate. That's the most we can do. And I think in a sense our minds already know some of the criteria that entail, and we sort of have these like feelings associated with deviating from that path or being on that path. So we walk away from a meaningful conversation feeling really enriched. And when we're not really in the right spot for us, we might feel bored, we might feel anxious. So I think listen to those cues. And it's almost a process of reverse engineering what meaning looks like to each of us.
Mhm.
So this is a concept you could think of as like a reveal demand function. So it's like the
Yeah.
hidden purpose that you can actually find by exposure and putting yourself in different situations and evaluating that. Fortunately, I think there's some generic features of that sort of meaning function that we all share. We
Yeah.
want to be healthy. We
Mhm.
want to be socially engaged. That's even more important than not smoking is to be socially
Yeah.
engaged.
True.
And then I think we want to be, continuously enriching ourselves with knowledge and experiences. And so I guess I'm really excited about maybe not 5 years, but maybe more like 15, when hopefully science and technology and kind of this new science of well-being can basically help us along that path to fuller, more meaningful lives. So I think for now it's up to us, but maybe in the coming decades we'll be assisted on that path.
Yeah, well, goodness, I just feel like, you're going to have this huge documentary made about you 30 years down the road, and they're going to use a clip of our little tiny podcast, because I think you're going to do great things. You've already done great things, and I think you're going to do just tremendous things with your passion. You can just tell you're very passionate about all of this stuff. I would love for the audience to be able to find you, and I don't know if you have any way that they can kind of link into Lifestacks and when, you know, it will be available so they can take a look at it, because I'm sure, you know, the majority of my following love the idea of fasting. Either they do it intermittently, very intermittently, or it's something that they do on a daily basis, but they're huge proponents for it. And I'm sure they would be very interested in at least your very first product that you're having come out that supports that fasting. So can you give them some information of all the cool places that they'll find you?
Yeah, of course. So our products are available at lifestacks.com. That's Lifestacks, STACKS.com. And I'll give out my personal email, which is Zach, ZACK, at lifestacks.com. Send me a note. I try and respond to everything. And looking forward to hearing from you.
Oh, good for you. Well, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, and you give me faith. I mean, my own children give me faith, but I just love that you've taken such a forward approach to things that you're passionate about. And like I said, I bet your parents are super proud. And I have no doubt that you're going to be very successful in everything that you go after, because it's literally coming from, you know, coming from your own personal experiences, and then being able to branch that out into helping other people. And I think that's usually the best place for something to start, is your own experiences and being able to take it and help the world. So thank you so much for being on this podcast and sharing everything from being on Shark Tank, which do you know if there's a place that you could see it? Is it like on YouTube or?
It is on YouTube. I think you have to pay $1.99 or $2.99 per episode.
Yeah.
But we are season 11, episode 12. I hope I didn't flip those, but it's either season 12, episode 11 or 11, 12.
I have to see you in your chicken suit.
Yeah, right.
And because, you know, I found you on Instagram. If you scroll down on your Instagram, do you have any clips from the show on your Instagram?
Yes, I think we do.
You do? Okay.
We have to scroll to January of 2021, but I'm sure.
Okay. Well, that's too fun. I don't think my audience knows this, but we had a home in Maui, and it was on some home and garden, some cell TV show. I wasn't on it, but the house was, which was kind of cool to see our house, except they kind of picked it apart. To see our home on one of these really big TV shows. I can't remember what it was. And then there was another TV show called My Bride Rules, which was quite a while ago. And it was, you would take your car and you would pit it against 3 other contestants, and you would ride each other's car, and then you would rate it. And my husband, who's a big car guy, wanted to be on the show, and I drove him there. And because I was a female, they'd never have females on the show. They actually said, would you be on the show with him? And I said, sure, I'll be on the show with him. And then they put me on a completely different show. But the funny thing is, Zach, is there's 4, and I won I won out of the 4. So I got this huge trophy. And my husband came in 3rd on his show. So it's kind of a standing joke between the two of us that he wanted to be on the show with his fancy car, and my normal car got me 1st place. But it might have been rigged because I was female. But anyway.
Well, congratulations nonetheless.
Thank you. It's fun to be on TV.
Yeah, it is. It was
fun to be on TV. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much. And for all my listeners out there, help support this young man. And I'm definitely going to give the new Lifestack supplement a try. And I hope that you do as well. And if you do, let me know. I would love to hear about it. And as always, I hope that you wake up feeling prepared and that you go to bed feeling proud. Have a great day. Wow, we've reached the end. But before I leave you, I'd love to hear from you. After all, it's not every day that someone reaches out and asks for your opinion. And to me, your opinion does matter. So please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this message. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. My name is Melissa McAllister. And until next time, thank you for being your own health advocate.